Sports Radio Network.
Live from the Buffalo Wild Wings studios, it's time to get locked into the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Hoo boy, it's heating up. I mean that in a very literal sense. It's 76 degrees in this studio.
It's a lot warmer on this side of the glass.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I don't know why. That just made it sound like I was in prison, but it is.
We're already off the rails, folks. 20 seconds in to the Jim Knowles Hour here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. It's actually Locked In, but we're talking about Jim Knowles today. We'll be talking about Jim Knowles all week. There is no topic about which OU football fans are more curious right now than what is going on with Jim Knowles. Now, let's get to the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line right off the bat here. 405-651-3439. And this is a very interesting place to start. Because this question has not yet been asked. And this was not a question I was expecting to have to answer, but someone asked it. Was Zach Alley pushed out for Jim Knowles? The answer to that is absolutely unequivocally no. Oklahoma did not want to lose Zach Alley. Oklahoma offered Alley a lot of money. It's not nearly as much money as they're prepared to pay Jim Knowles, but they offered him a lot of money to stick around. They thought he would. He told people he would. Then he left for West Virginia very abruptly. No, Zach Alley was certainly not pushed out. And I will say this. Well, I shouldn't say that yet. If this hire comes to fruition, there's a lot of postmortem stuff that I'm going to be able to say that I will be very excited to say, very eager to say about how this all went down behind the scenes. But no, Zach Alley was not pushed out. Sooner Bump said, back for another hour with LeBron and the Senator, and LBJ seems to be serving a 5 to 10 stint in the clink. Another excellent question here on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line from a listener in the state of Missouri. I read that Knowles makes $2.2 million per year. How can OU get him without offending the other coaches? I'm not even really sure how to answer that one. Without offending the other coaches? All of OU's other assistant coaches are paid very handsomely. But I imagine if anybody has an issue with Jim Knowles making north of $2.2 million, and I'll just say this, he would be making north of $2.2 million at the University of Oklahoma. They're giving him a raise if he shows up. You know what you tell any assistant coach that has an issue with that?
Kick rocks.
Sure, you could phrase it like that. Certainly, that would be the blunt way to put it.
That's the way I would put. That's the way I would put it for being on air.
The more rhetorical way to put it would be, he just had the number one statistical defense in all college football, and he just won a national championship. So he's worth that. You haven't proven that you're worth that, which is the brutal truth to any of the other guys on staff, right? And some of them are really good at their jobs. I think Emmett Jones is awesome at his job. Bill Beatonbow is objectively awesome at his job. Some people have beef with his 2024 line. That's okay. I get that. Your concerns are valid. But you have some assistants that are awesome at their jobs on staff. There is nobody on staff that has accomplished more in the profession than Jim Knowles. He is your most decorated assistant coach the moment he joins staff, if he does join the staff. Zach and Purcell said it well. Offending the other coaches, show me your national championship ring. Does Jay Valaya have one? No, I don't think he does. I don't think Jay Valaya has one. No, because he was on the Alabama staff that year they lost to Georgia.
Even if Jay Valaya had one, he's a position coach right now.
Mm-hmm. You bring in possibly the top defensive play caller in all of college football, fresh off a national championship run. Yep. Somebody in the state of Kansas asked, is Jim Knowles getting that FU money? That's exactly what he would be getting at Oklahoma.
How about this from the 918? If this hire does happen, what's your over-under on transfers he could bring with him?
So I will count again just in case anything has changed, but to the best of my knowledge, the best of my recollection, last I checked, Oklahoma has 2 vacant scholarship spots right now. 2 spots that remain unfilled. That said, what you can always do is push some more guys out. You can always do that. And that will probably happen at some point, regardless of whether Knowles is a hire or not. We will not get through the spring without Oklahoma telling a few more football players, hey, you should probably go find somewhere else. So, I think that if Jim Knowles were hired at Oklahoma, you'd probably see a transfer or two. Now, I could throw out names, but it would just be speculation. I mean, he's got to take the job first, then we can seriously engage in that conversation and start to toss some intel around as it abounds. But no doubt, a defensive coordinator changes schools, makes a lateral move in particular. There are going to be players that enjoyed playing for him, felt like a good fit for his scheme, that want to join forces with him once again, want to go with him wherever he goes. And there are plenty of guys as well that are going to be, well, I shouldn't say more regionally tied to Oklahoma than Ohio State, but certainly in close enough geographical proximity to home base that it's not going to feel like you're all the way on the other side of the world transitioning to Oklahoma. Because Ohio State, to their credit, and this is one very impressive trend in recent years, is they've recruited the state of Texas really well. They've started to establish a foothold in the state of Texas.
So has Oregon.
Oregon has as well. And you understand why, because Oregon has money. Ohio State has money too, no doubt. But Ohio State has consistently further and further established their position as a recruiting powerhouse in the state of Texas. And so you'd have to look through that roster. You'd have to evaluate each of those individual guys and where they fit, where they would fit in Knowles' defense at Oklahoma, whether they would have a clear path to playing time, whether they would have reasons outside of football to jump at the opportunity to come to Oklahoma. The 2 guys that probably immediately come to mind just off the dome are Peyton Pierce, whom we've talked about, and then Caden McDonald, a defensive lineman out of Georgia who was really, really high on OU in high school. Both of those have been brought up on the text line. Dave from Norman says lateral move is generous, Parker. I don't mean lateral move in the sense that Oklahoma and Ohio State are on the same plane as programs right now, because they're not. Ohio State just won a national championship. But lateral move in terms of the role and the responsibility. Defensive coordinator at Ohio State, defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Wilkerson's bro has sent us a conspiracy theory, which he has very candidly prefaced as a conspiracy theory. Thank you for the honesty. When Jim Knowles caught wind that West Virginia was approaching Zach Alley, he had his agent reach out to OU, which led to Zach Alley deciding to take the West Virginia job, perhaps with a nudge from BV, because BV saw an opportunity. No. No, and here's why. Because agents say a whole bunch of stuff. And who knows what agents actually mean. And who knows when it's just a leverage. Like, this is the tough thing about dealing with agents. As a reporter, certainly, but also as a coach or as an administrator, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You have to ask yourself, okay, is there an agenda here? Is there a reason they're pushing this my way? And so that alone, if Brent Venables is told, hey, you might be able to hire Jim Knowles, that is not reason that he's going to tell his protege, Zach Alley, whom he handpicked to run his defense last January, yeah, go ahead. You go on to West Virginia. I got somebody else coming in. Because you don't know that. At that point, what if it is just leveraging for a raise from Ohio State? At that point in time, when Zach Alley left, Ohio State was in the college football playoff and nothing more. I guess they'd won 1 game at that point. Or had they?
No, the playoff hadn't started.
January 28th. or I'm sorry, December 28th was when Zach Alley took the job. So we'd already had the first round of playoff games.
Yeah.
We were down to 8 at that point. And so Ohio State had only won 1 game. So they're not national champions at that point. At that juncture on the calendar, there's a very real concern that if that's all you're hearing is noise from the agent, it's just Jim Knowles leveraging for a raise from Ohio State. But now, given that we're clear of a national championship victory for Ohio State and this buzz hasn't gone anywhere and has only intensified and we've gotten the non-denial in the press conference, what does that tell you?
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Not just agentry.
Sean says, I promise you we're not playing 4D chess at OU. Allie wasn't forced out under some grand plan. Yes, I know. Have you seen the movie Ocean's 11, Grayson?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if this was the case for you, but like the first time I watched Ocean's 11.
Wait, a movie you have seen?
Yes. That's one of the movies that I'll go back to. One of the very few that I will have no problem watching again and again. First time I watched that movie, I had to sit and wrap my mind around everything for like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to run everything back in your head and like almost like connect the dots as to what actually happened.
Yeah.
When that movie finishes, because it all unfolds and it's all like more or less visually explained in such rapid succession that you can't even digest it in real time the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, you come to realize, oh, it's all an intricate con by these guys to rob the casino. And every little detail of it was all set up perfectly and all played out according to the plan. And I know everybody would love to believe that things like that happen behind the scenes in college football. And sometimes they do. Not to that extent, but sometimes it's all part of a larger plan. In this case, it wasn't. Oklahoma wanted Zach Alley back. Oklahoma did not want Zach Alley to go to West Virginia. But once he did, I mean, I don't think anybody is going to argue with it, Grayson. I don't think anybody's going to argue OU is worse off if the departure of Zach Alley means that you bring in Jim Knowles. That is a blessing in disguise. That is the silver lining in the cloud. If you're like, dang, we lost our young, hotshot, up-and-coming DC. That was tough to swallow for many OU fans all the way back on December 28th when it happened. But to see where OU is today, 3 weeks later, almost 4, on the verge of hiring the defensive coordinator from the newly crowned national champions, could you have scripted that any better?
We love sports, don't we? 5-star Gunny of Stutzman Army. Hey, what's up, man? Because you aren't a thief, Parker. That's why it took you a minute to figure. I think that's what you mean. Figure it out.
I'm gonna hope he meant figure it out.
I would say this segment can go
The
so many
word
different
the
directions.
word he wrote is not the word figure.
No.
Yeah, Gunny, that was one of the most mentally overwhelming moments of my life was when Ocean's 11 ended, and I had to process and run back through everything that had just happened and make it all add up in my head. And then, of course, you watch it the second time, and, oh, this all makes perfect sense. Can't believe I didn't recognize it all the first time around.
It's not as elaborate, but have you seen Now You See Me?
No, I haven't.
Similar situation. Really good movie, by the way.
Caleb from Grove on the text line asks, how many years do you think he would sign on his contract? And do you think he could possibly sign a deal where if BV doesn't make it at Oklahoma that maybe he takes the head coaching job? I don't think, and this was one of the areas in which things kind of fell out with Dan Mullen, right? Was because Dan Mullen wanted the head coach in waiting designation, which is a tall ask for anybody. Because what that carries is an underlying assumption that the head coach is either stepping down or getting fired.
Correct.
The underlying assumption therein is that your current head coach is not your current head coach for long. And obviously, Joe Castiglione and the Oklahoma administration are not going to acknowledge, whether verbally or in writing, that, yeah, who knows, like, we might fire Brent Venables here soon. Even if that's a possibility, it's not something you're going to put out in the atmosphere.
Not to mention that this isn't a situation as if, like, BV is 68 years old.
Correct.
And is in the twilight of his career. This is a younger dude. So if you give somebody like, let's just say Dan Mullen, the head coach in waiting tag, you know what that could lead to? A coup.
You're not lying.
That doesn't lead to anything good at all.
And at this point, I know I asked this last segment kind of rhetorically, just asked it to the universe more so than asked it to any individual, but you got to wonder, like, does Jim Knowles really want to be a head coach? Because he tried it. It didn't really work out for him. For the last 15 years, he's been a coordinator, and a dang good one. Maybe he realizes that that's where his wheelhouse is. Maybe he realizes, you know what? I'm a really good defensive coordinator. I should never veer off course. I should just keep doing this. And so, I don't think Oklahoma would ever offer a contract to a coordinator that stipulates they're the next head coach if and when the current head coach moves on.
It's just a bad idea.
And also, I don't think that's something that would be altogether crucial from Jim Knowles' side to making this thing happen. We all kind of understand why Jim Knowles has such interest in Oklahoma. Outside of the fact that it's a historic program that needs a defensive coordinator, right? Like, there's a reason Oklahoma in particular is the one job he's been tied to.
And guess what? That's all right. We totally understand. LC in Newcastle. So 68 is Twilight, LOL. My bad if of a coaching career. Hopefully not of your life.
Yeah, of a coaching career, certainly.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, how many guys these days coach past 70? Very few. I guess Bill Belichick's still doing it.
Bill Belichick's getting started at 70.
He's 73, man. And his girlfriend is what, 24?
My age. About 23, 24. I was hoping you were going to bring that up because that's the
How
person.
can you not at this point with Belichick?
Did you see his girlfriend's Twitter post? He was like, we are totally committed to. I was like, why is your 24-year-old girlfriend the one saying we're committed to North Carolina? That just was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life.
What broke my brain was somebody on Twitter said she was in utero during the Tuck Rule game.
Oh, those were hilarious. Somebody said that she's going to start dating one of his players.
Shoot, you got to worry about that these days, don't you?
Could you imagine that?
What a time to be alive. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Let's hit a timeout. When we return, more of your texts. We'll hear what Dusty Dvorak had to say this morning when prompted by Plank to discuss the Jim Knowles saga. Keep it rolling on Locked In here on a Tuesday. You're listening to The Ref. The Home of Sooner fans, stay here.
Hornsdown Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the umps because Spike was safe, Hornsdown Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Hornsdown celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Street, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
As your trusted consultant, Brown O'Haver can give you peace of mind and make sure you're getting what's yours. Call Brown O'Haver today, 405-735-5510, and make sure they're working for you.
Are you in need of purchasing your own health insurance? Are you turning 65 and confused about Medicare? Are you an employer looking at offering benefits to your staff? Call the agents at Allison Insurance. They'll sort through the confusion. They're not captive to just one company, and they'll get the best option for you. Don't get frustrated. Call Allison Insurance at 800-580-5587 or 745-2968. Allison Insurance. They are the experts.
They say if you don't like the weather in Oklahoma, wait 5 minutes and check it again. Nope, not there yet. Ah, that's more like it. Being comfortable is important, and if it's -5 degrees or 100 degrees, Norman Air has you covered. Our impeccable quality and unbeatable service is what sets us apart from our competitors. It's just part of our mission to keep Oklahoma comfortable. Visit normanair.com for all your heating, air, plumbing, and electrical needs. Norman Air, service to the max.
What is a good neighbor? It's someone nearby who helps make your life a little easier. I'm State Farm Agent Julia Chu, and my team and I take time to understand your insurance and financial needs. So whether you're preparing for retirement or in need of auto, home, life, or business insurance, get the kind of help you'd expect from a good neighbor. Visit the Julia Chu Agency or call 329-3311. Come visit at our new location, 701 Wall Street, Norman.
At Confidence Ford of Norman, we believe in living up to our name. Our commitment to confidence is in everything we do. Whether you're searching for the perfect vehicle from our extensive selection of new Ford models or pre-owned cars, our dedicated team will help you every step of the way. Because with us, you're family. We're conveniently located at 825 North Interstate Drive. Confidence Ford of Norman, a Cavender Auto family dealership where confidence is Cavender.
Hi, I'm Luke Settle, leading a team of dedicated insurance professionals alongside experienced pharmacists here at Sooner Pharmacy in Norman, Oklahoma. Medicare doesn't have to be confusing. We combine pharmaceutical expertise with insurance knowledge to help you navigate the options, find the right fit, and make informed decisions about your health and financial security. Visit makeahealthplan.com or call 405-217-0711. Plan Insurance, your trusted Medicare partner.
Ready for some pickleball fun? Join us at the Y-Fac for pickleball every Tuesday from 8 to 11 a.m. and Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. Grab your friends and hit the courts for a lively morning or evening game. If water fitness is your pleasure, Aqua Zuma classes are every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Go online at yfac.com to learn more about day passes and memberships.
The six-time national champion OU women's gymnastics team continue their 2025 season with another SEC matchup against the Arkansas Razorbacks Friday, January 31st at 7:45 p.m. at the LNC. It's Country for a Cause night, and fans will get a glimpse into special causes that the team is passionate about while enjoying country music throughout the night. Visit Soonersports.com/tickets to secure your seats now, and we'll see you Friday, January 31st. Boomer Sooner.
It is buzzing on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439. You're listening to Locked In here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Parker Thune in the Buffalo Wild Wings studios alongside Grayson Singleton. This hour of the show brought to you by Dorsey Jones Buick GMC out in El Reno. Cody from the Northeast Corner on the text line said, Oklahoma is going to be even more silly after this hire. Yeah, this would dispel the notion, certainly, that OU is broke because you hire Jim Knowles, Grayson. I feel like it goes without saying because he's the third highest paid DC in college football right now. But if you hire Jim Knowles, he's going to be, at least for the time being, the highest paid DC in college football.
I mean, where did the term Broklahoma? I mean, I know it's kind of coming from you're not getting all the five-star players you want to. I think that has a lot to do with it. But where did the term Broklahoma come from?
I think it originated with DJ Hicks. I think that was the recruitment where Broklahoma was born. If I'm wrong, let me know. I believe it stems back to DJ Hicks. Regardless, Jim Knowles is obviously the most popular topic of conversation across the Soonerverse today. Naturally, Dusty Dvorak, a regular here on the Ref, and of course a National College Football analyst and color commentator for ESPN, great former Sooner, joined the Plank Show this morning, and he was asked about the Jim Knowles saga.
So it sure sounds like this is very real.
I think it's real, yeah.
It seems very real, and I would give it up to, when you mentioned when Parker said it, and I know I talked to Brandon Drum, and I give those guys credit. I mean, I think they had great sources on this for a while, and as I said, I didn't know. I didn't have inside sources. It just seemed on a surface level like this doesn't make a lot of sense. But obviously when, there's relationships and family or significant others involved, things change. And again, I was not told anything's a done deal, but I had multiple people very much in the know last night come up to me and say, you're going to have a new defensive coordinator soon. So there's definitely people that were in Atlanta last night at the highest level that seem to think this is going to happen. I still don't know exactly if and when this becomes a done deal. You hate to, jump the shark, but this has real teeth. It sure seems like, as has been reported now by a lot of different people. I thought, even at Media Day when there was not really a a denial from Jim Knowles. I was kind of like, okay, maybe this is real. So what a potential for whatever the reasoning is, it doesn't matter. Jim Knowles is an outstanding defensive coordinator. We saw that in Stillwater. We've seen that in Ohio State. And I just think perceptionally what that can do for Oklahoma to get Jim Knowles to come from Ohio State, if this does happen, and become your defensive coordinator, that is humongous. And it's something that I think this program needs right now. It's a guy that you would think that Brent Venables can completely trust and allow him to run the defense. And it really excites me. Again, I don't want to get overly excited until anything is a complete done deal, but something that whenever we initially had talked about it, I kind of just pushed off as I'll have to see it to believe it. It sure sounds as if there's a lot of believability out there that this comes to fruition. And boy, what a massive, massive splash hire that would potentially be if this does happen. You're able to get Ben Arbuckle, you're able to bring in John Mateer, and now defensively with the players that are coming back, which you've added via the portal, and if you could bring what some would say is the defensive coordinator to the top of the sport right now to add to that defense, wow, what an offseason it will have been in a pivotal season for Brent Venables. So I don't want to – I'm not here to say it's a done deal yet, but there was definitely multiple people coming up to me last night acting as if this thing is going to happen. So I'll be anxious to see if and when we get some news and verification that Jim Knowles potentially leaving Columbus to come to Norman to be the defensive coordinator.
How about that testimonial for OUinsider.com from Dusty Dvorak? Thanks for the props, Dusty. And by the way, if you want all of your insider intel on OU football, recruiting, and the like, OUinsider.com is the place to be, where me and my co-publisher Brandon Drum, whom Dusty referenced in the soundbite there, have been all over the Jim Knowles saga for several weeks. And I will freely admit, initially we were not saying Jim Knowles' name. Because in so many words, we were told, do not say Jim Knowles' name or you will die. And so, tried to drop as many hints as possible. Didn't take long for people to catch on. And, here we are weeks later. And now, shoot, man, there's absolutely no reason to play coy. There wasn't any reason to play coy from the moment that his name started getting mentioned nationally. Even before he was asked about it on Saturday, you saw all the national shows starting to talk about this noise, Jim Knowles to Oklahoma. What could this mean? Was there any validity to this? But, yeah, folks, you want to be ahead of the curve. OUinsider.com is the place to be. Alex from Manford on the text line says, if Knowles gets hired, that will mean the DC and the head coach would have a national championship as a defensive play caller from different schools. Please correct me if I'm wrong about this program being the only other one, but there is only one other school that has that right now. Can you guess which school it is? Okay, so hang on.
Ooh.
DC and the head coach both have a national championship as a defensive play caller from different schools. Huh. I'm going to have to noodle on that one.
I got nothing.
You might have stumped me, Alex from Manford. My immediate thought was, who's Oregon's defensive coordinator?
Right.
Because Dan Lanning obviously has one as a defensive play caller. Or no, I guess he does. No, he does. He was with Georgia for that championship game before he took the Oregon job. I'm going to have to think about that one over the break. That's a really good trivia question. I love trivia, Alex.
What about Georgia? Who's Georgia's defensive play caller right now?
Isn't it? Shoot, I don't even know.
Because Kirby, I think,
Kirby obviously has one
as a DC.
Who is Georgia's defensive coordinator? I should know this, and I know.
I wonder if the answer is Georgia.
Teddy says it's Oregon. Teddy texted me and says it's Oregon because that would mean okay.
So who's Oregon's DC?
Well, I knew who their DC was. I didn't put it together that he won a national championship. It's Tosh Lapoy. Alabama 2017. That's right. Dan Lanning, Tosh Lapoy. Yep, that'd be it. Well done, Ted.
Well done, Alex.
And well done, Alex. Yes. Love trivia. Anytime you guys want to bring us trivia questions, I'm all for it on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Heavily endorse trivia. Chris from Knoxville said Glenn Schumann. That's right. Glenn Schumann's the defensive coordinator of Georgia. And he was at Bama previously, I do believe. Larry from Cashin says, no shame in Parker's push for his off-air cash stream. Yes, I have to make a living, Larry from Cashin. My apologies. I feel more than justified in talking about it once in a blue moon on these airwaves. A 918 listener says, well done, me. Yes, okay, well done. Many of you got the correct answer. Oregon, Dan Lanning, Tosh Lapoy. I had forgotten that Tosh Lapoy was at Alabama for that 2017 national title run. A 405 listener asks another question that I think we're one step away from being able to have this conversation in all of its fullness. But he asked, would there be any position coach changes? And obviously, any time that you're talking about acquiring a big-name coordinator, that conversation is going to arise. Does his addition mean that there is a shuffling of the deck anywhere else on staff? Does he want to bring his own guys with him? Ben Arbuckle did not. Brent Venables said that he gave Ben Arbuckle the leeway to hire whoever he wanted to work with offensively, and Ben Arbuckle decided, you know what? The staff as it is right now, that's good enough for me. Let's roll. And to this point, I mean, I know we're still in the early stages, relatively speaking, of this whole process because Jim Knowles isn't even the defensive coordinator at the University of Oklahoma as of right now. That hire has not been made. But if it were, there haven't been any names mentioned to me as guys that would be following Jim Knowles from Ohio State for on-field roles. And when you look at Ohio State's on-field defensive staff, not a lot of guys that you would consider logical candidates to move on from Ohio State. Larry Johnson has been there for over a decade as the defensive line coach, and Lord knows they will pay whatever it takes to retain him because he's arguably the best in the business.
Yes.
James Laurinaitis is an Ohio State alum and is their linebackers coach. Probably due for a bump up in pay, at the very least, maybe a bump up in responsibility if Knowles departs. Tim Walton, cornerbacks coach, he's a Buckeye alumnus. So again, it's not as if Jim Knowles has cobbled together a staff at Ohio State of a bunch of guys that have ties elsewhere and they're going to be first in line whenever that opportunity opens up, or they're going to be inclined to take the mercenary approach if their defensive coordinator goes somewhere else and wants to bring him with him. Ohio State's done a really, really good job of assembling a staff that isn't likely to be poached. Even Brian Hartline, right? And I think that's probably the best example. How instrumental has Brian Hartline been in building everything that Ohio State is today as an offensive powerhouse?
You can reasonably say Brian Hartline should be an offensive coordinator by this point.
And you can reasonably say that Brian Hartline has been pound for pound Ohio State's most valuable staffer over the last 5 years. It's between him and Larry Johnson.
Oh, yes.
I would probably give the edge to Larry Johnson just based on the way that Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau dominated the college football playoff. But
sure,
it's a two-horse race between those two. And Brian Hartline played at Ohio State.
He did.
So, look, you can't always build a staff of alumni and guys with ties to the university that's going to perform like that as a unit. That's going to be able to recruit the way that Brian Hartline recruits, develop the way that Larry Johnson develops. But when you have that perfect storm of circumstances where you can get Buckeye dudes that are that good, then you're going to do everything possible. And you probably won't have to jump through a ton of hoops, but you'll do everything possible to make sure that you keep that nucleus as long as possible. In many ways, Jim Knowles is kind of the outsider to that Buckeye staff.
Pretty much.
Right? I know Ohio isn't terribly far from Pennsylvania, where he grew up and attended college. But still, from a regional standpoint, it's not as if Jim Knowles is as deeply tied in a recruiting sense there in the Midwest as some of the other assistants that he works with. Although he has had very few employers in the last 2 decades, he has been all over the map in a certain sense. Cornell to Duke out in the Carolinas, to Oklahoma State, smack dab in the middle of the United States, and then obviously up to Ohio State most recently. So in many ways, it's easier for Jim Knowles to walk away from his role at Ohio State than it is for pretty much any of those other assistants. Monster Truck Guy says, I don't think losing Allie was that big of a deal. We would have lost him soon anyway. Probably a head coach at like Houston or something. Zach Alley's probably not far away from being a head coach. After the expiration of his current contract at West Virginia, and it might not take that long, he'll have opportunities to be a head ball coach. The Waffler says, I know why you aren't answering my question, because you can't. Well, sorry, the Waffler. We've just been fielding a lot of texts. So I haven't been ignoring your question. I just haven't gotten around to it. But his question was, how is Emmett Jones awesome? What has he brought here? A crap ton of talent. And moreover, I know there's a sour taste in everybody's mouth over what happened in 2024, and that's perfectly understandable. But that was out of Emmett Jones' hands, and need we forget how good that wide receiver room looked in 2023 the minute that Emmett Jones got there? I mean, dudes that had not produced to that point in their collegiate careers, producing en masse. And obviously, Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson, the sample size was small, but I firmly believe if you asked him, and I'm pretty sure I have in the past in those post-practice interview scrums, Jaden Gibson would credit Emmett Jones for, and I don't know if he would phrase it this strongly, maybe he would. I think he would probably, in so many words, credit Emmett Jones for changing the trajectory of his football career. Because we tend to forget how much of a problem child Jaden Gibson was when he showed up at Oklahoma. You remember the 2022 version of Jaden Gibson, the true freshman version of Jaden Gibson? It was an all-out head case, brawling with dudes on the practice field. Any chance he got the opportunity to see the actual field in a game situation, he was trying to scrap with the opposition. I mean, like, Jaden Gibson today versus Jaden Gibson 3 years ago when he showed up to the University of Oklahoma, night and day different. And you felt that shift right around the time that Emmett Jones got to town. And so he's been great for these guys from a character development standpoint. And he certainly, in the year 2023, helped dudes that had not yet produced break through that ceiling. Andrell Anthony, I know he hurt the ACL against Texas and never played again at OU save for that one reception he had in the season opener before he had to get a cleanup procedure this past fall. But Andrell Anthony was Oklahoma's most prolific wide receiver through the first half of the 2023 season. The previous year, he had caught one pass at Michigan. One pass. And so I would beg of you, please do not allow what happened in the 2024 season to drastically alter your perception of Emmett Jones, because he can't help it if his dudes are hurt. What we saw from his room in 2023 when all of those guys were healthy, there's reason to believe that Emmett Jones is and will continue to be one of the best in college football as a wide receivers coach.
Did he pay you for that endorsement?
He did not.
That was a hell of an endorsement right there.
I am not on Emmett Jones' payroll. I am just one of those that believes he's really good at his job and has taken some unfair criticism because of how banged up his room was. Like, I've not tried to deflect the criticism of Bill Bedenbaugh for his 2024 unit, even though I think Bill Bedenbaugh is one of the absolute best at his job. I can't really defend his unit in 2024 because it was bad. And I know they were dealing with injuries, but still, there were guys that should have been ready to play that really weren't. Emmett Jones lost the top 6 guys on his depth chart.
There's just not really much you can do about that.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Eric the Red on the text line. Some of these listeners sound like my girlfriend when I don't answer her text right away.
Instant gratification. We try to get to as many texts as possible, folks. We can't get to them all. Wish we could. Wish we had infinite airtime. Unfortunately, we don't. And to that point, we are running up against a break here. But, oh, that music hit and it was loud.
My bad.
You're good. We're going to hit a quick break. When we return, we will wrap up Locked In here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans, with more of your texts on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439. Stay right here. We will return.
Hornsdown Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the umps because Spike was safe, Hornsdown Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Hornsdown celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Street, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
To enter our $100,000 Snow Much to Win giveaway.
Thunder up and double down to win your commemorative coin during any Thunder game.
So start off 2025 right.
And we'll see you at Riverwind.
There are trucks, then there's the truck. GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your Oklahoma GMC dealers. Come take a test drive today and see for yourself. We are professional-grade GMC.
Do you like to stand out in a crowd while wearing the best in OU apparel? The Jimmy Austin Pro Shop carries the best brands you can wear to work or even dress up events. Lines such as Lululemon, Travis Mathew, FootJoy, Greg Norman, Grayson, or Turtleson with the OU and Jimmy Austin logo are sure to catch everyone's eye. You don't have to be a golfer to shop at Jimmy Austin. They also do corporate special orders for you and your company. Call them today, 405-325-6716, or visit theougolfclub.com for more information.
When you're sick, you need to be seen by a health professional today, not next week. Norman Regional Urgent Care is here for you from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Open 7 days a week at Porter Health Village in Norman and Monday through Friday in Westmore and Goldsby. No appointment needed, just walk right in. Whether it's a sudden illness or a minor injury, Norman Regional Urgent Care is ready to get you back on your feet today, not next week.
There's strength in family and there's strength in partnership. At Armstrong Bank, we believe in building financial stability and enduring relationships. As a family-owned community bank since 1909, we'll always be here to support you because we know that true strength is in our communities. Armstrong Bank. Strength runs in our family. Visit armstrong.bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, it's Mike Steely here for Cavens Group. Has it ever happened to you? You get home from the weekend, you arrive back at work on Monday, and your office is full of water. Not good. Now we're in that time of the year where pipes or sprinkler lines will freeze, and this can lead to a ton of damage to your home or business. Plus, if it's not cleaned up properly, that can lead to even more costly repairs in the future. Call Cavens Group today at 405-573-3048 or visit cavensgroup.com.
For years, Auto Image USA has been Norman's place for all your auto accessory needs. But now they have closeout prices on their audio department. Brands such as Pioneer, Kenwood, Digital Design, Power Acoustic, and much more. Stop by because once they're gone, they are gone. 2701 Northwest 36th Street in Norman, or call them today, 405-321-4044, or visit AutoImageUSA.com.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank you for joining me and supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America.
I joined the Navy to serve my country. While parachuting with my platoon, my parachute didn't open, and I broke my neck.
Thanks to PVA, paralyzed veterans are getting specialized medical care and treatments, the jobs they want, and the accessible vehicles and homes they need.
I just don't think my family would be as happy as they are without the support that I received from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Learn more at pva.org.
(405-651-3439) is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. And boy, do we love the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line around here. It enables all of you to chime in throughout the show. You're listening to Locked In here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Parker Thune, Grayson Singleton with you for one final segment before the rush kicks off with Teddy and Tyler. That should be a fun 3 hours ahead. Who knows, Grayson? Maybe something will shake by the end of the afternoon.
Do you see something shaking by the end of the afternoon?
Probably not.
That's too quick of a turnaround.
My whole read on it for a while has been Wednesday, Thursday is when we find out. 48, 72-hour turnaround from the national championship game. That feels about right for this type of thing. So if something happened today, great. Not necessarily counting on it, but Lord knows we'll all be glued to our phones.
Like we always are anyway.
Yeah, that's generally true. More so than usual right now and today, and until Oklahoma announces their new defensive coordinator, whoever that might be. Of course, the expectation is that it's going to be Ohio State's Jim Knowles if the Sooners can nail the coffin shut on this thing. On the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, we're now having a whole conversation about Emmett Jones and how good of a wide receivers coach he actually is. We got all offseason to talk about that. Let's talk about Jim Knowles. Let's talk about what's hot. A 918 listener says, if Jim Knowles is hired, would he have total say on all the current defensive coaches? No. No, he would not. Brent Venables would not give Jim Knowles total say. Obviously, he would have input, and anything he wanted to do would be heavily considered by the boss man. But, for instance, let's say Jim Knowles gets to town and wants to there's no obvious reason why this would be the case, but let's just say Jim Knowles gets to town and wants to fire Brandon Hall and bring in his own safeties coach. Brent Venables is not letting that happen. For obvious reasons, Brent Venables is not letting that happen. And I think to a broader point, there really isn't much reason, and in fact, there would be a lot of concern if you parted ways with or lost any of the current defensive assistants. Because with the way that Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates and Jay Valai and Brandon Hall have all individually recruited and stockpiled talent over the last couple of years, Grayson, you lose any one of those guys, you have to worry about an exodus at their respective positions. And that's probably not something you want to deal with. Because it's unpredictable.
And position coaches are a lot of times more influential in these recruiting maneuvers and recruiting efforts
100%
than coordinators and the head coach.
100%. 918 listener says, has Teddy been interviewed for the DC job? Just hire him already. I don't think they could pay him enough. Maybe they could. Ohio Sooner says, I saw a stat that out of all the players who were on the roster for the national championship, 61 were from Ohio. That's crazy. Obviously, it's important to get elite skill position guys, but I think Ohio State proved that even in the transfer portal era, having a foundation of in-state or close to in-state guys like Jack Sawyer, for instance, is still key for assembling a championship roster. They only took a few big transfers, and I hope that OU can get to that point, in the very near future. It's a good point, Ohio Sooner.
Very good point.
I do think the numbers are a little bit skewed and maybe not representative of the reality just because Ohio State and Notre Dame are two programs that are in very close geographical proximity and thus recruit Ohio heavily. I mean, not to paint with too broad a brush, but the vast majority of kids that grow up in Ohio grow up wanting to play for Ohio State, and a lot of the ones that don't grow up wanting to play for Notre Dame. I mean, those are the two dominant football programs in that neck of the woods. And so if you have, and I imagine your number is correct, 61 total players from Ohio in the national championship game. But if you have Ohio State versus anyone else but Notre Dame, or you have Notre Dame versus anyone else but Ohio State, that number gets cut in half in all likelihood, right? And so I think what Ohio State has done in recent years is the recipe for success from a recruiting standpoint, and that is to prioritize in-state relationships, make sure that when you get studs within state lines, you can go land them. Jack Sawyer is a great example of a dude that is Ohio born and bred, that was always all in with the Buckeyes. But you also have to be able to go to places like Texas and California and Georgia and Florida. And that Ohio State has done. Where's Jeremiah Smith from? He's from Florida.
Florida, yeah.
Yep. Perfect example of a guy that, yeah, he might be the best player in college football next year. And Ohio State had to go outside their quote-unquote comfort zone, if you will, geographically, to go land him, but he was absolutely worth the effort. And with Brian Hartline's track record, they could make a strong pitch to him, a successful pitch. They had to really hold on down the stretch because everybody was trying to flip Jeremiah Smith, understandably so. Ohio State wins that battle. But, shoot, man, you look at the key contributors on that Ohio State roster, you will see Ohio dudes. Again, none bigger than Jack Sawyer, I don't think. But Emeka Ibuka, JT Tuimoloau, you know where those two are from? They're both from the state of Washington. So, if you have a brand that is nationally recognized, if you have a football program that is successful enough, that is elite enough, that is storied enough, that dudes are going to want to play for it, regardless of where they come from, then you got to flex that. You got to leverage that. You got to make the most of that. And Ohio State, especially in the last 3-4 recruiting cycles, and you see it in the results last night, they've done that, and they've done it very well. And Oklahoma, the deal with the state of Oklahoma is it's not dissimilar to a lot of those Midwestern states. There is a high concentration of talent in Ohio, more so than there is in Oklahoma and more so than there is in a lot of other states because you have some big metropolitan areas in that state.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Cleveland most specifically, Columbus being another one. So you're going to have a higher concentration of talent than a school like Oklahoma. But what you can't do is what Lincoln Riley was doing when he was here, which is just treat the state of Oklahoma like any other state. Recruit indiscriminately. No, you have to discriminate a little bit, especially if you're at a program like Oklahoma, where historically speaking, some of your best rosters, some of your best teams have been heavy with Oklahoma talent. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, you know this as well as anyone, Grayson, they've made a living for years off finding the undervalued dudes, under-recruited dudes, under-the-radar dudes from within state lines and developing them. Malcolm Rodriguez
is the first one that comes to everybody's mind from Wagner.
Bingo.
Yep.
And so those guys are there. You got to land those guys. You have to develop those guys. You have to get the most out of those guys. And ultimately, guys like that, it's going to mean a little bit more to them.
Yeah, I mean, just look at a guy like Colin Oliver from Edmond Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
Same concept.
It's always going to mean a little bit more to the guys that legit grew up dreaming to play for the University of Oklahoma as an Okie themselves. But you got to walk like a program that's won 7 national championships on the recruiting trail. You got to be able to head to places like Georgia and Florida and California and shoot, even Ohio, where Oklahoma has pulled a guy or two every now and again for several years now. You got to be able to go to those places and be willing to fight the tough battles for the top talent and win those battles. And Oklahoma's done that in the Venables era. They maybe haven't done as much of it as the fan base would like. I think to an extent that's understandable because, let's call it like it is, Oklahoma was a little bit behind some of the other Power 4 programs in the mix when it came to adapting to the NIL era. And they were less aligned right off the bat to be able to operate in that era than schools like Miami, Tennessee, certainly Texas A&M, Oregon, even Texas. And so that comes with time. That adjustment is happening, and I think to a great extent has happened. The 2026 class, especially if you hire Jim Knowles, is really going to be where you see what kind of teeth this staff has in the recruiting game. Whether they can go and fight the battles in foreign territory for some of the best in the country and win them, in addition to maintaining your stranglehold on in-state recruiting.
I think you hit that right on the head. Those diamonds in the rough, so to speak, is what keeps Oklahoma State relevant.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it. I know Oklahoma State recruits DFW decently. Oklahoma recruits DFW pretty decently. And at what point, because Texas, by the way, has lost its footing in DFW, You could blame Oregon for that.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't Oklahoma take advantage of that too?
What do you mean?
I feel like it's a very interesting thing because as Texas has slipped, it wasn't Oklahoma's footing that got more sturdy.
Yeah, I mean,
DFW.
Oklahoma has recruited DFW well.
That's almost an extension of in-state.
It is,
if you think about it.
Yeah, and they will always have a consistent presence in DFW. They'll always pull elite guys out of DFW, and they've done it in recent years. That hasn't gone away. A 405 listener says, so don't let legacy tight ends leave your backyard for Ohio State? Got it. Yeah, that would be a good place to start. All right, The Rush is coming up next. We're done here on Locked In. Grace and I will see you again here at noon, same time, same place tomorrow.